Hi, this is John Wiederhorn with the with the MTV Music Blog, and we're here today with the ever entertaining and humorous Mike Patton from you know him from everywhere from Faith No More to Tomahawk to Mondo Kane, his latest project. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you for having me.
And God, how could I forget Peeping Tom? One of the best shows I've ever seen was
Really?
well, I don't know if it was the best show, but it was the best circumstance was seeing you at it must have been Madison Square Garden with the Who, and just
wow, that one.
the dumbfounded expressions of all the like 50-something-year-old mullet-wearing Who fans. It was astounding. I think me and like 4 other people were cheering our heads off while everyone else was just kind of scratching their heads. It was great.
Yeah, I always wonder, like, I make these weird sort of career decisions, and that was one of the weirdest ones I've ever done. I thought it would be a good idea, no matter what we sounded like. Hey, to open for the Who, what could go wrong? And, well, I found out.
So there wasn't a little bit of a smirk knowing what would happen when you did that?
I knew what would happen, yes.
Yeah.
But, ultimately, do you have to kind of put it on the scales and say, hey, was it worth it? Was it worth my time? Was it worth, the band's time? It's not just about my personal sort of vendettas or quirks. I have a band to think about here, and it's really sometimes you wonder, was it worth it? Definitely, it was fun, but did it really further? Did it really enrich anyone's lives? No, I don't think so. I think it pissed a lot of people off. That's what I think, and I don't think that it really got us any new fans or really furthered the career of Peeping Tom. That's my personal opinion.
No, that's a good point. Is there a fine line between deciding like what gigs to do when it comes to the provocation factor and the adoration factor?
Well, look, neither pays your rent. there's nothing you can, at least in my opinion, can subscribe to that's gonna make it work and make it worth it. I think that in my later years, I'm getting a little bit more opposed to just taking gigs, to provoke people. That's not, hey, my music should provoke them enough. I don't need to go up there and act like a jerk, just to get a reaction. I'm 4 years old. I don't need it.
Mm-hmm. The latest project that you've got going, Mondo Kane, seems like a very, not that your other projects haven't been serious, but this is a very I don't know, should we call it sophisticated or God forbid use the word mature?
Well, okay. Yeah. I mean, I'll take that if that's what you're saying. To me it's just music, and I put together a collection of music that was really important to me, and I dealt with it in a respectful manner. Whether that means I've grown up or not, I don't know. To me, doing a record like this is something I've wanted to do since I was a teenager. So it's a long time coming, and I finally put out a record of crooning and sort of melded it with a period of my life where I lived in another country and fell in love with their music.
Can you tell us about how you kind of developed that fascination with this kind of music and what it was about the culture and the environment that really was kind of swept off your feet?
Well, I mean, whenever you live anywhere, whenever you're even if you go on vacation somewhere, you sort of, at least I try to immerse myself as much as I can. living in Italy was no different, and I had the opportunity and the time and the means to investigate and to get really deep into the music. What was it that attracted me? I'm not really so sure. If you want to get technical, maybe it was the arrangements of the tunes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was the fact that they were quote-unquote pop tunes, but they were incredibly dense and incredibly complex, and a lot of the arrangers that were working on this music were film composers and like real studs, not pop hacks per se. So that definitely, I remember putting in cassettes into my tape recorder and recording the radio so I could learn the language. What I would do is I would come back home to the States and listen to cassette tapes. Not listen, but just put them on in the background. And so I would have this sort of thing going on in the background no matter what. And I figured that, via osmosis, I would sort of learn the language. And lo and behold, it worked. But one of the discoveries I made while dialing around on the radio and flipping the dial and recording this stuff was a couple of really great oldies stations that play this amazing music that I'd really never encountered before. And so that was sort of a baptism for me and sort of a way in. I learned about this stuff, and then I, started asking friends, and then all of a sudden, a million doors opened. And I knew at that point in time, this is like 10 years ago, that I had to make a record like that. That's it.
So, getting from the point where you're inspired by this great Italian music from the 50s and 60s, how do you then go to creating it yourself with your own musicians and your own arrangements with the budget that you have to work with?
Well, there's you either attack it aggressively or you don't. There's no point in trying to recreate the past or trying to basically replicate something that's basically perfect. I thought, hey, this stuff is amazing. It inspires me. I'm going to use that raw material and hopefully make it my own and hopefully do something with it that is not better or worse. It's just different. And that's, when doing a cover, that's kind of my MO.
Mm-hmm. What was the greatest challenge doing this album?
Big what?
What was most challenging about doing this album?
God, where do you want to start? I'll just play on the obvious here. Working with an orchestra with 50 people as opposed to 5 people was pretty challenging and pretty daunting. You got to keep 50 people happy as opposed to 5. I'm used to working in a rock band where I got 4 or 5 people. We go on stage. It's very easy to take the pulse and be the doctor of that situation. When you're working with an orchestra, it's a little hazier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine. Was it an enjoyable process, though? Was it?
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have felt the need to document it if I didn't enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And it was crazy. It was weird. Very educational. But ultimately, I had such a good time, and I thought we did a good enough job representing the music that it was worth documenting, on a record. So, yeah. I wouldn't say 100% pure pleasure, but like any endeavor, hey, you wouldn't be doing it if you didn't care.
Sure. Were there any particularly strange experiences or amusing, things that happened to you while you were working on the stuff?
No, not really. A lot of orchestra jokes. A lot of a lot of garbage like that.
No French horns out the hotel window?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, more often than not, it really was. I was more concerned not with. I really didn't understand what I was doing. At the time, I was more concerned with the overall effect of it. And there were some shows we played where maybe we were playing an outdoor concert and like an old person, an old lady, for instance, would come up, while we were sound checking outdoor piazza in Italy, and say, "Hey, son, you've got a great voice. These are great arrangements. Where are your, where can I find your cassettes?" And to me, something like that, it's easy to snicker at, but that completely warmed my heart, and that made me think, hey, I'm doing something here. People are listening.
Sure.
And not just a bunch of smart-ass kids. People, who happen to be walking by and hear this stuff in Italy, and they're eating ice cream or whatever. To me, that sort of validation was important.
Do you plan on taking any of this material and performing it in the States?
Why not? I can plan on anything. I can plan on playing on the fucking moon too. But that's not really going to happen. My friend, it's difficult. Playing in Europe with a project like this is one question, because there are lots of subsidies and city, funded concerts that make, a big project like this much more palatable. Here in the States, for whatever reason, it's a lot more difficult. So, I'm working on it, and I hope that I can play here next year.
Mm-hmm. How are things going right now with your label Ipecac? It's a particularly strange time or harrowing time for record labels and musicians in general.
Well, things are going okay. We've had to. The strange times have taken a while to reach us. I remember kind of laughing, a few years ago when all the major labels were whining about downloads and stuff, and we were doing just fine. Finally, that tide has reached us. Yes, it's difficult. We have to sort of on a year-by-year basis, the last year, 2 years or so, rethink, or at least reassess what we're doing, and maybe not put out 20 releases a year, but maybe 15. It's really hard to say no to a lot of great artists, but there becomes a quandary where, and this sounds horrible to say, but sometimes the cost of manufacturing a record doesn't even justify it from a business sense. So it becomes difficult, and I'm an artist, so it doesn't please me to say those words.
Yeah, of course, and you cross that awful line between art and commerce, which.
Well, yeah, but I can make art all day long. The challenge for me is kind of realizing how to run a business and also how to do it intelligently and put out things that that maybe are not so commercially successful, but we have to at the end of the day stay alive, and we're figuring out how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's we could easily be a bunch of fools and go bankrupt, but that's not what we're about. We want to put out good stuff and stay alive. So we're learning how to tread water in these times, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Are there upcoming projects that you have lined up with any of your other major outfits? Tomahawk, Lavage, Fantomas, Peeping Tom.
Yeah. Basically, almost all of the above.
Mm-hmm. Great. Any?
No plans, but I'm working on. I'm writing new Fantomas stuff. Lovage has a second record that's been done forever that God only knows. Maybe it'll see the light of day. Tomahawk, I got a CD in the mail yesterday, actually, from Dwayne, the guitar player, that, bunch of new tunes. So even though it's acoustic guitar and metronome, I figure he's working on something.
Yeah, I love Dwayne.
So, yeah, every project really has its own sort of timeline and method, and yeah, I just take them, as they come.
And what about Peeping Tom? Is that something that's still got some life to it?
Absolutely, as much life as it ever had. I've got a lot of tunes that are already finished. That at some point I want to find certain guests to appear on. I'm not going to spoil the party and name those guests, but I can tell you this: the second record will not sound much like the first.
Mm-hmm. Must be very difficult to juggle all of this stuff at the same time.
No. Why?
Well, you have
Why
to.
Do you say that?
Well, because certain things, to be working on 5 things, something has to take priority. And when you have 5 babies that you value equally, it's hard to take one and put them in the front of the line.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this: Do you have a family?
Yeah, I sure do.
Okay. How many kids?
2.
Okay. So let me ask you: How do you delegate your time between your 2 kids, and how do you not show favoritism? How do you I don't know, make time for them and make time for yourself at the same time?
Antidepressants.
Okay.
No, it's like juggling.
I guess I shouldn't have asked.
It's like juggling chainsaws, It's
Dude,
I guess you just do it. I guess that's the answer, right?
Absolutely. You just answered your own fucking question.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
I mean, come on. I'm not doing anything freaky here, and people love to make it a freak show. It's not, okay? What I'm doing is just, I've taken a certain a part of my life and made it 100%, and that's it. It's no big deal. If something is important to you, you make sacrifices and you make it happen. You find time to do it, okay? And whenever anyone asks me, like, how do you juggle this, I say the same fucking thing. I'm like, okay, do you have a family? Basically, that's where it starts.
Right.
Because my friend, I you're doing something that I think is much more busy than me. Juggling a family, 2 kids. Are you kidding me? and then like your hobbies and you got to stay happy and whatever it is that you do to do that. Oh my God! And your job,
right?
Which apparently is talking to fools like me. I'm just saying, there's no difference between you and me.
Right.
In fact, you're busier than me. You don't realize it.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but we can certainly.
I'm telling you. Okay.
What are you looking forward to most in the in the year ahead? You are going out with Faith No More on a number of dates. Is that a new exciting kind of priority, or is that just another thing on the agenda, on the schedule?
No, it's exciting. I can't really commit myself to anything that I'm not somewhat excited about. So the Faith No More is different for me because it's exciting on a very, I don't know, personal level, and a level that it's very cool. It's strange for me because we're revisiting, a bunch of music that we made a long time ago, and so you kind of have to get reacquainted. So there's definitely a period of awkwardness, and I think we're through that now. And right now, it feels really comfortable. And not only that, it's like one of the reasons I think, well, at least personally, that I wanted to do this was to sort of, I don't know, repair some damages there, and basically, I don't know, strengthen some relationships, with people that you've shared, a huge part of your life with. So to me, it was very, very cool to revisit that and look at the music in a whole different, light. When you're 19 doing the stuff, it sounds a lot different than when you're 42. It's been a pleasure to kind of re-look at this stuff and re-examine it and be able to execute it in a different way.
Who is it that proposed or invited you to consider coming back to the band and playing some shows?
There was no one person.
Mm-hmm.
It was sort of just a climate, for lack of a better word. We'd gotten lots of offers to do, to reform and to play more concerts, and I basically laughed most of them off. This time I listened, and this time I took it seriously, and didn't, act like a jerk, and decided to meet with the band and see, hey, is this something we could really pull off musically? Could we really do it? And we decided, to rehearse, and that sort of, to me was the proof that, it could work.
Was there a moment of awkwardness, a learning curve, so to speak, where you had to kind of get back in those shoes and learn how to skate again?
No. I mean, musically, no, not for me.
Well, more personally with those guys.
No. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's. Nah, I wouldn't. No. It was very comfortable. It's not much different than the way I've been doing business, since we broke up. So it wasn't, there was no real drama there. The only real difference is with my other projects, I don't play live shows like that. That's not my role. My role is very different in a lot of my projects. I'm not just out there with a microphone, entertaining the crowd. So getting back into that mode was took me, I had to shift, a few gears to get back there.
Mm-hmm. Do you anticipate the possibility of another full-length Faith No More album, or is that out of the question?
It's not out of the question, but the answer is also no. I don't see it. Part of the reason that these shows have been so fun and this entire run and this entire concept of getting back together was so enticing was because there was no bullshit like that. There was no pressure. There was no interviews. There was no record. We just show up and we play music. So, for as long as we can, I want to keep that want to keep that feeling alive, and we'll see what happens. But right now, no. There's no. We have no aspirations, of recording or doing anything else.
Mm-hmm. And what was the highlight, looking back, of your years with Faith No More? Was there one era which was just really the most exciting, the most inspiring?
No, I mean, I just kind of think of it as a certain phase in my life, and I'm happy and pretty much proud of what we've done during that time, and that's it. No, I can't think of one thing. It's too large to name one event.
Right.
To me, it's we're talking about a decade here, so.
Yeah. What about the opposite?
I'd rather just leave it at that.
Yeah. Was there a low point? I mean, you never have struck me as someone who is a willing rock star, and yet with the success of Epic, with the success of The Real Thing and Angel Dust, you were propelled into that role of rock star. Was that something that was difficult for you, or was that something?
No. I mean, not in hindsight. Maybe it was difficult for me at the time, but my way out was to have other bands and do other things. And I had other ways of basically saying, hey, this ain't me. So, I created my own sort of comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And, it would sound really trite for me to sit and complain about being a rock star. It was great. It was fine. And we were happy as a band. But there's no accounting for taste, and you have to be able to find your own voice within a situation like that, and I managed to do it.